iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.
Hi, everyone, at the Virtual Thespian Festival. My name is S.J. Arniger. I'm the director for iHeartRadio Broadway. Welcome to the second night of Curtain Call for the Virtual Thespian Festival. We're so excited that you could be a part of this and that you have taken the time to watch this program. Again, we are your late night talk show. And as always, our program is co-hosted by the wonderful Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. They're also our charitable partner. And you're going to see my partner in crime, Michael DiBianco, education specialist for Broadway Cares, in just a little bit. But I want to get to our first guest. She made her Broadway debut in the Heights, was in Wicked. She starred as Princess Jasmine in not only the Australian production of Aladdin, but also the Broadway production. She's performed all across the world in concert halls, and she is going to be seen in one of my absolute favorite new musicals, Between the Lines. I cannot wait for audiences to see this show. So please welcome to Curtain Call, Arielle Jacobs.
Hello, SJ.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. You know, we're figuring it out one day at a time.
Exactly. Yeah. Every week is different now.
Exactly. So that's really my first question. How are you doing with all of this?
Oh man. So far I'm doing okay. You know, the uncertainty of not knowing when theater is coming back is been challenging. I've been trying to do a lot of teaching online and online master classes and stay involved with the arts community as much as possible. But I am very excited for when we can start performing again.
So before we go into your career, before we talk about me fangirling out about Between the Lines, as I normally do in front of you, my main question that I'm asking everyone on this show is, what musical theater voices inspired you growing up?
Ooh, growing up, I would say some of my favorite albums were Into the Woods, the original cast album of Into the Woods, and Secret Garden, like Aarons and Flaherty music and Ragtime. Those albums and the voices on those albums felt like they took me to another world. I also really loved Sunset Boulevard growing up. I know that's kind of random for a little kid, but I remember playing Sunset Boulevard and acting out and singing out all the parts in my living room. Like I was a very intense Norma Desmond, so I was just always very full out. And I'm trying to think of other musicals that I've always really loved. You know, Stephen Schwartz, obviously Alan Menken. So yeah, basically so many voices.
So funny you say that about Sunset Boulevard. I remember carpooling with friends, and we would put the Sunset Boulevard cast album on and sing to our heart's content with that cast album. And it's some of my favorite memories of growing up
Yeah.
as a kid was Sunset Boulevard. I loved that show so much.
And I've actually never seen it on stage, but I just love the soundtrack.
It's amazing. So let's talk about, you made your Broadway debut in the Heights, but before that you had just done the In the Heights national tour, and you also did High School Musical national tour. So you've already had this professional theater career, but when you made your Broadway debut, was it everything you expected it to be, or was it still surprising at the same time?
It was totally surprising. It was bizarre to me that it felt, you know, in my head, I'm like, oh, this is Broadway. This is the top of the top. But at the same time, having spent 2 years on tour in those two different productions, I was so used to just the life of like going to a new theater and putting up the show every week in a different theater. And a lot of those theaters on tour are humongous. They're like 2,500, 3,000, 5,000 seats. So when you get to Broadway and it's like 1,000 seats and it's so small, it's just like you have to remind yourself, like, but this is New York City and this is what I've been working for and this is so special. And it is special because at the same time I was in the Heights on Broadway with a lot of the original cast, including Lin-Manuel Miranda. And so it was absolutely thrilling, and especially because that show, when I joined the Broadway company, it had already announced its closing. So all of the audiences were rabid fans, and they were so loud, and um, they were just such big fans. Like when we did the blackout, you know, And a lot of this happened on tour too, I will say. But when we got to the blackout and everyone holding up their cell phones and like creating the world of the blackout out in the audience too, holding our cell phones up. And during Carnaval, people would literally stand up and like have flags with them and be dancing around. So that was different than tour because that was, that was that only happened on Broadway because everyone was so in love with the show and didn't want it to close. And I still don't know why it closed, but yeah.
It's such a good show, and I can't wait for people to be able to be a part of it with the movie coming out. And I'm just thrilled that it's going to have a bigger, wide mass appeal too.
Yeah, I actually got to do the role. I got to do that show a few other times too, regionally. I played Nina again, and I played Vanessa actually. The last time I did it, I played Vanessa at Virginia Rep in Richmond, and my now husband played Usnavi. So he and I had the best time for a summer just playing Usnavi and Vanessa. I have a secret video of that somewhere.
So going on from In the Heights and your other roles that you've done, you got the chance to pack your bags, move to Australia, originate the role of Princess Jasmine in the Australian production. What was that experience like, basically just picking up everything and moving to Australia?
I had always wanted to go to Australia. Actually, I was always jealous of my brother because he got to go to Australia in eighth grade for a school trip, and I had always wanted to go. So getting to live in Sydney for 6 months, I knew going there that it was going to be something that would be, in my mind, something I was going to talk about even like till I'm 100. I'm always going to be remembering that time I lived in Australia. And going to Sydney, I was so excited because I didn't even know why. I'd never even been there. But then when I got there and I got to experience the people there and I got to experience the culture and the beautiful scenery, it was more than anything I could have dreamed about. It was so different and fun, and like the people there are just the sweetest, most playful, most present people. I can't even explain. It's like it's a whole new world. It really is.
So how did the process work? Did you do any rehearsal here, or did everything happen in Australia for you?
Everything happened in Australia. I did get fitted for costumes in New York, and I had my wig fitting in New York. But when I went to Australia for the show, everyone was local there except for me and Michael James Scott, who played the genie. So it was really creating the show from scratch with the entire creative team. And building the show from scratch with like brand new sets, brand new costumes for everyone, and teaching them all, including me, the whole show. So it was a 6 weeks. Sorry, it was 6 weeks long, the whole rehearsal and tech process of creating it. Yeah.
And then you left the production in Australia and then came back home, where you took over the role as Princess Jasmine in Aladdin.
Not right away.
But eventually you did, and you got to play it here for a little bit, for actually a little while.
Yeah, for like 2 years, about 2 years, yeah.
I always am so amazed watching shows like just really the Disney shows, the fans, especially the kids, the young children, they get to see the world just come to life for those shows. Talk about kind of the stage door aspect to playing a Disney princess and then meeting the fans after.
I loved going to the stage door after playing Jasmine because I have a whole album of pictures that I've collected of me posing with little girls dressed as Princess Jasmine because they came in full costume. And these are kids from all over the world. These are, this happened in Australia and it also happened in New York. And it was the sweetest thing because for a lot of these kids, they're meeting Princess Jasmine, and this Disney princess is their favorite character of all time, and maybe it's also their first Broadway show. So getting to have that character come to life in front of them and see their eyes light up is just the most magical experience. I loved it, and I got to meet fans from all over the world. Yeah,
and watching kids dress up in the costumes for a Disney musical is probably some of my most favorite things to see. because it's just pure innocence and just the joy that they have when they see a show, especially when they're in costume, is just so cute to me.
And also hearing them from the stage. Like a lot of times, the opening number of Aladdin, all the characters are introduced. And whenever my character came out, I would say like 95% of the time I would hear a little kid in the audience shout out, Jasmine! And that was so fun to get to hear that from the stage.
I love that. So we're going to take a quick pause from Michael DeBianco from Broadway Cares to join us. He's going to give us a little PSA for the company. So Michael.
Hello, thespians. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited to see you all. You guys are so amazing. Thespians play such an important role in the Broadway Cares community, from Red Bucket Appeals, producing Broadway Backwards concerts, benefit auctions, custom t-shirt sales, bake sales, pop-up flea markets, you name it. You have all found so many ways to share your incredible talents and creativity to help make a difference in your home state. By collaborating with Broadway Cares, you're able to bring your cast and crew together in such a unique way outside of the classroom, providing a common cause that will inspire your creativity and encourage your fellow castmates to collaborate in new ways. You're also creating a culture of philanthropy at your school, providing life-saving medication, healthy meals, emergency financial assistance to those who are living with HIV/AIDS, women dealing with breast and ovarian cancer, and just friends and neighbors struggling with illness and personal crisis in all 50 states, Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. If you want to find out more about how you can get involved with Broadway Cares, please come visit me at the virtual exhibit hall. I would love to meet you, or you can go directly to broadwaycares.org to learn more. So now I'm going to hand it back to SJ and our very, very fabulous guest, Arielle Jacobs.
Thanks, Michael. The work that Broadway Cares does is absolutely amazing. Do you have any shared memories from working with Broadway Cares?
I love all of the Broadway Cares events. I love the Broadway Cares flea market, getting to meet so many fans when we do those autograph tables in Times Square at Juniors. And I love the Broadway Barks and how that's also connected and raising money for all the shelters everywhere and finding homes for little ones like this guy here.
Hi.
Quinn, he's the Broadway pup.
Oh, so cute.
And I found him at a shelter in Long Island. So he's the best part of my life.
Oh my God, it's so cute. So every time I've talked to you, Tim McDonald and I interviewed you on our podcast, Growing Up Broadway, for iHeartRadio Broadway. You know I'm a huge fan and a huge supporter of Between the Lines. This musical is something very special, and I've been around it for really the last 5 or 6 years, I feel like, watching it grow in development, seeing the various forms of this musical come to life. My first question is, what's it like being attached to a show through the development stage? And then second, can you give our viewers a description of what Between the Lines is actually about?
Yes, for sure. Being a part of a production from the very beginning is incredible. It's actually the very first time I've done this, I think. I've been, I've started in a lot of shows, but all of them, even High School Musical, when I did the national tour of that, and it was the world premiere production, that one didn't have years and years of workshops that I was a part of. So this is the first time I've actually gotten to do that. And getting to have the show continually change throughout the years and putting it up in its different iterations is its own challenge, but also so fulfilling just to see how it's coming together and getting stronger with every rewrite, and how even the energy changes because it's different casting. Every time we do the show, if it's a concert or a workshop, there's slightly different cast changes. So that's fun for me too, because when I get to do the show with new people, every time I have a new energy to work off of, I feel like I learn more about the character and it helps me grow in the character. So I can't wait. I can't wait for everyone to see it. You know how good it is. It's
so good.
so good.
I joke all the time that I wake up with Best Day Ever, which is a song from the show, at least once a week. I wake up with that song stuck in my head. the music are such earworms, but in the best way possible. And the characters are so well done. The show is based on a book by Jodi Picoult and her daughter, Samantha Van Leer. I'm friends with Jodi. You're friends with Jodi. Jodi was at your wedding. So I've loved this show for so long, and I literally cannot wait for people to see it. So can you tell people what the show is about? Sorry, I'm totally fangirling out right now.
Yeah, of course. So Between the Lines is based on this character, or this girl named Delilah McPhee, and I play Delilah, and she's in high school, and she comes from a broken home, and she gets bullied, and basically she wants to escape her life. She doesn't like how it's going. She doesn't feel like she's worth anything, and no one pays attention to her. So she escapes by reading books, and she loves to read all kinds of books, but there's one book in particular, this adventure novel, that has a character she starts to really like. His name's Prince Oliver. And she talks to him all the time and just wishes that this prince would come to life and rescue her from her horrible life. And eventually, the prince actually does come to life. It's almost like she wished for it to happen and then it came true. So the prince in this book comes to life, and what surprises her, though, is that he doesn't like where he's living in this fairy tale that he's in, this amazing story, and he wants her to rescue him from his life. So it's kind of like a grass is always greener situation, and she has to eventually figure out how to be the hero of her own story and write the story that she wants to live in.
It's such a beautiful show, and the show is supposed to open this May at Second Stage. And everything's delayed because of everything we're going through, but the show will be seen by audiences. And it's just such an uplifting story because it is all about writing your own destiny, writing your own story. It's not a love story in the traditional sense of what a love story is. It's also about a lot of self-love and self-acceptance. The writing team is amazing. Jeff Calhoun is directing. So again, I can't wait for audiences to see this show.
It's also such an important story for the mother-daughter relationship that it highlights, because it's a single mom with her daughter in high school, and they have many battles in the show and eventually have to figure out how to create a new relationship where it's one that they both want to be in with each other. And it's so healing, and it's so beautiful and fun, and like you said, the music, all of the songs are so catchy, so it's great.
I can't wait. It's so good. The musical, if you go to, I think it's btlmusical.com. Do you know what the website?
Yeah, betweenthelinesmusical.com. Yeah.
You can listen to songs from the show. There are some SoundCloud files, so you can get used to hearing it. Follow the show on social. They do these really great social media videos, like once a week, every other week. So just follow the show. I tell you right now, you're gonna have a blast. So okay, moving on from there. We're all going through such a crazy time right now. We're all trying to figure out what's next. How are you staying motivated throughout this? Because our students are really going through the same thing, not really knowing what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just basically trying to remind myself that this is not going to last forever. There will be theater again. It might feel different. I'm not sure, what it's going to look like, because maybe I'll look out from the stage and everyone's going to be wearing masks and I won't be able to see them laughing and smiling, and that will be a change. But I'm just keeping the faith that we will be able to perform again, and hopefully when that time comes, there's going to be a lot of new stories that have been written during this time. And also just people are going to be so fresh in their yearning for connection that I'm guessing audiences are going to just feel even more open to whatever stories that they're being told, and more excited for new material. And
I'm assuming you're not here in New York City. You're home with your family?
I'm with my family right now in New Jersey, outside of Princeton. It's very green here. You can see. And I've been spending time also in Florida with my husband in Miami.
That's nice. I mean, to get out of the city, I'm
my brother's here too.
Hi, popping in just to say hello. What's up, iHeart?
Look at this. I have Adam Jacobs, the original Aladdin on Broadway.
Come join the interview.
Sure, I'll pop in.
So because this is for students, what advice do you have for students right now? What do you have for them if they're still in high school trying to figure out what their next thing is, or those students that are going on to college? What's that piece of information you have for them?
Well, Arielle touched on how it's a difficult time. You know, I've spoken with a lot of kids who had their productions canceled from high school,
Yeah.
and it's just heartbreaking because I know, at that time how important that was to me. So I just try to reemphasize that this is something that will pass, and just hold on to that passion that you have for the arts, and there will be other opportunities out there for you. And in the meantime, enjoy the Zoom calls and all the fun things that are happening. This is such an amazing time. It's pretty cool how everybody's been able to adjust in a way and find ways to have these creative outlets and get their theater fix in a way, So it's
And I
pretty
hope
cool.
that it stays. I really hope that.
Yeah, I hope this part stays.
I hope this part stays where we can talk to people online and people can have more access to their, favorite Broadway performers in a way that wasn't happening before.
Yeah, I feel like it makes us all have a little bit more of a human connection with people right now. I think we lost that for so long, and reconnecting, even if it's just family.
In a personal way too. We're like in each other's homes, and it's like
right.
you're getting to know your favorite artists in different ways, in new ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we do on the podcast, Arielle knows this, is we do a rapid fire musical theater quiz. Would you both be interested in a few random questions? First answer that pops into your head.
Okay.
Michael's going to come back and be my co-host for this.
Okay.
Holla. Hi.
All right. First question. Favorite musical of all times?
Ooh.
Between the lines.
Very diplomatic answer. I love West Side Story. It's one of my favorites.
All right, Michael.
Funniest, most embarrassing thing that has ever happened to you on stage?
I have fallen several times on stage, and I will tell you so many times.
You've fallen a lot during the vows.
Well, yeah, but also when you and I were performing on a cruise ship for a talent show when I was like 10 years old, and the boat jerked, and then I almost fell on the stage on the cruise ship. And the audience laughed at me. Maybe it planted a seed in my head, like this is something that I do, and everyone laughs at me because it always now happens all the time. Like I was doing the next big time it happened was when I was doing High School Musical, and there was one performance where I don't know if the stage was slippery or if my shoes are slippery, but when I ran on from behind the scrim and then down center, I went and I bowed and I fell flat on the floor. And everyone was laughing, but also terrified. And then my co-star, I give him a lot of credit. He played Troy. His name was John Jeffrey Martin. And when he took his bow next, proceeded to throw himself onto the floor.
Solidarity.
In solidarity with me. So that made me feel better.
Yeah.
But it tends to happen a lot.
Mine would probably be in Aladdin. It's everyone's worst nightmare, like on stage quick change, where you don't make it, basically.
What were you wearing?
It was from end of Act 1.
So they revealed you and you were wearing what?
And I had my pants, they just were not done up, and everything was just open. It's like a Velcro thing. It was not together. And I sing my big final, Prince, end of Act 1 reprise, Proud of Your Boy, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go for it, and everybody just don't look.
Don't look down.
Keep your heads up. Everybody look up here. Yeah, it's really.
It instantly became Broadway Bears. That's it.
Broadway Bears.
All right. If you could play any role regardless of gender, what would it be?
Ooh. Ursula.
Oh, that's a good one.
Good one.
Hey, villain.
Who do you want to be when you grow up?
Arielle didn't answer.
Oh, I'm sorry. I know I got rapid fire. I was so slow last time.
Maybe Evan Hansen, or maybe Mrs. Lovett or Sweeney Todd.
Good one.
One of those
Sweeney
two.
Todd.
Sweeney
That's
Todd.
good, yeah.
I can see Sweeney Todd. That's a good one.
Nice. Okay, now I'm gonna. Sorry. Who do you want to be when you grow up?
Oh.
Who do you want to be when you grow up?
Me? No. Who do you want to be?
I don't know, me, or like Lea Salonga or Stephanie J. Black.
Male version of Madonna, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dreams.
Dreams.
If you could eat one thing for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh my gosh.
Mango or pizza or Thai food.
Or mango pizza with.
Ew, gross.
Ew.
Although I like pineapple on my pizzas.
I do like that sometimes.
Out of the following shows, which has been your favorite? Aladdin, In the Heights, or Between the Lines?
That's not a fair question. I said Between the Lines before, so
Yeah. All right.
that's not saying anything else.
All right, and the last question is best piece of advice you've ever received?
Ooh. I've received.
I like what's the word? Basically stay in your lane is a good one. Comparison is the thief of joy.
That's a good one.
Which is the same thing.
Mine was be kind to everyone that you work with, whether it's the people who clean up your dressing rooms to the people who sell the tickets. Everyone, it's a small community. Reputation is important. Be kind to everyone.
Yes. I feel like that is just life's motto in general. Be kind to everyone.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't happen that often.
Yeah. The diva thing's a myth. Forget it.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Adam, thank you for the wonderful surprise of joining us today.
Good to see you.
I'm sorry we roped you into our rapid fire questions.
I roped him in, not you.
It's fun.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And we'll be back with our next guest in a little bit. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
What can I say? Arielle Jacobs, so amazing. Adam Jacobs making a surprise appearance. I mean,
That's why you go visit your family.
Right?
Because they all show up.
There are some silver linings in quarantine.
Yes. Your famous relatives might show up.
So I'm going to pass it off to you to do the next intro.
Ooh, yes. Very excited. Our next guest has been seen on Broadway in A Christmas Story, Matilda the Musical, both Broadway and the national tour. She's also been in various concerts throughout New York City and is currently starring as Lydia Hillard in Mrs. Doubtfire the Musical. Yes, very excited. Please welcome to Curtain Call, Analise Scarpaci.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So we're going to let Michael go away. So my first question is just how are you doing with everything right now?
I'm doing okay. I'm enjoying some much needed time with my family. It was a little bit of a shock at first, obviously, because we were right in the beginning of it all. We were 3 previews in, and I was living the dream. And I had just moved into my first apartment, so I was just starting to live on my own for the first time, and then to move back home and be with my parents again, it was a little bit of a shock at first, but I'm loving it. I love being home. I love spending time with my family. We're all very, very close. So, but obviously I miss the show and obviously I miss being at my apartment, but we'll be back soon. I know it.
So I was interviewing Rob McClure a couple weeks ago, and he said that you all still get together as casts to do a little bit of Zoom rehearsals.
Yeah, we actually had one on Tuesday. So we do Zooms every 3 weeks and 3 days just to check in and make sure everyone's doing okay and say hello. And it's really, really nice to just see everybody's faces. I miss them so much.
I will say when I got to interview the whole entire cast at the press day, and for those that don't know, before a Broadway show opens, there's a press day where the press gets to come, have a little sneak peek of the show, interview cast and creators. So we did one for Mrs. Doubtfire. And the most amazing thing about your cast is I feel like you all bonded so quickly, and it's such a family unit, and it was so lovely to see everyone kind of take care of each other that day, and especially for the 3 actors who are playing the children, the Hillard children, you all are just so close-knit, and it's so lovely to see.
Yeah, we really bonded so quickly, and I mean, I was the oldest in A Christmas Story and Matilda. So I guess you could say I have experience being the older one and taking people under my wing. Like, that's kind of my thing. I'm an only child and I don't have siblings, but I have a lot of cousins. And when I met Jake and Avery for the first time, we just clicked. I don't know how to explain it, but we just did. And Jake and I get along so well, and Avery is like the little sister I've never had. And even our understudies as well, who are in our ensemble, we really, the six of us, have just clicked, and we are so, so close. And I'm really, really grateful for that.
I can't wait we're going to talk a little bit more about Mrs. Doubtfire in a minute, but I can't wait for people to see this show. It is so much fun. It plays such a great homage to the movie, but makes it its own. The cast is phenomenal. So we're going to talk about West Side. We're going to talk about Mrs. Doubtfire in a second. I've been doing these interviews all day. But my first question, so people can get to know you, what musical theater voices did you idolize growing up?
Oh boy, definitely Patti LuPone, Bernadette Peters, and Barbara Streisand. Oh, and Liza Minnelli. Yeah.
All the big ones.
The big ones. I guess as a young Italian-American female, I always looked up to those women because they're so strong and powerful, and they really changed the game for musical theater and for people who look like me, and for strong women. So they're really, really amazing. And also I love Laura Benanti and Kristen Chenoweth. They're just amazing. And Audra McDonald, just really, really strong and powerful women.
Yeah. Audrey McDonald has been the theme throughout all of these interviews. Everyone has just said Audrey McDonald. That has been the ongoing theme of Curtain Call for the Thespian Festival.
I mean, could you blame us? She's
no,
the best.
she's the best. So you are also currently a junior at Pace?
Technically, yes. So this year I did take a year off from school to do Mrs. Doubtfire, and in the fall I will be going back to my junior year, which would have been my senior year, which is really weird, but yes, I'm a junior.
You are a musical theater major at Pace University. So we just talked to Shireen Pimentel from West Side Story a little while ago, and she was just graduating from Juilliard while she was doing West Side Story. So what is it like being a college student while doing a Broadway show? I know you took a year off, but you're still a college student. So what is that like?
Yeah, it's really crazy. I'm excited to do both at the same time. I'm really interested to see what happens. I mean, I'm so used to doing school at the same time as my shows because both for Christmas Story and Matilda, I went to school. Mm-hmm. And for Matilda, I was in my first 2 years of high school. So I'm very, I think, prepared to do the college thing. I, in a way, think that it might be easier than high school just because I'm singing and acting, and it'll be easier because the classes will be more spaced out.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Okay, so let's go back to Doubtfire. The musical is based on such a beloved movie. Rob McClure stepping into Robin Williams' shoes as Mrs. Doubtfire. What has the process been like working on this show? Because you've been in the show since development.
Yeah, since our first Seattle. They had done a reading, I think it's probably a year ago around this time, but I was not in that, and I joined in Seattle, so I was so nervous because I was like, oh my God, are they gonna like me? I don't know what's going on, but this is really fun and I'm having so much fun. But yeah, it's been an insane experience. Mrs. Doubtfire has been one of my favorite movies since I was little. And ironically, my dad was the one who showed me this movie. And it's special because my character of Lydia, her entire show is surrounded around the relationship between her and her father. Mm-hmm. So it's really, really special to me because it's a special movie for me and my dad. So,
and really I was very fortunate that I got to see the very first sneak peek of Mrs. Doubtfire at the Junior Theater Festival with you and Rob.
Oh my gosh.
And watching you all perform for 7,000 middle school students was just so wonderful. And the duet that you all had, I mean, it's a beautiful show. And like I said before, I can't wait for people to see it.
You know what? working with Rob and Jen and Brad Oscar and Jerry Zaks, for crying out loud. I mean, I never in a million years thought I would work with any of these people, especially as my first principal and especially at 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And to learn from all of these amazing people is the most incredible gift in the world. And I get to watch, and the fact that I get to sing with Rob alone, it's amazing. And I learn so much from him every single time we sing that song and every single time we do a scene together. He's the type of person that makes you feel like the most important person in the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
He just has that energy about him. And to learn from him and to be his friend is so crazy.
He's also just one of the sweetest human beings on the face of the planet. I interviewed him for the podcast that I co-host, and it was kind of at the start of quarantine, and we were asking how he was doing, and later on he went into the Mrs. Doubtfire voice and said everything will be okay. And I started to like full on weep on this video podcast, and I was like, pull it together. But that's just him. He's like the sweetest person in the world. Yeah.
That's exactly who he is. When we sang that song at Junior Theater Festival, it was insane. First of all, there were so many people. And I knew that even though that I was definitely nervous, because it was the first time that song was going to be performed in front of a multitude of people like that. I mean, we had done our run in Seattle,
Mm-hmm.
but now it's being released to pretty much a majority of our audience who will eventually come see our show, hopefully. But it was crazy and I was so nervous. But I knew that if I just lived in the moment and I looked at him, I knew everything was going to be okay. Everything was going to be fine. And that's what I think every night, when the nerves, especially during that song, since it is such a touching moment.
Right.
And it's so important because it was a cut scene from the movie. And not a lot of people know that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like this new surprise for some of our audience members. So,
and it's a really touching moment. And the other question I have about the show is the first time, I know you guys got to see Rob in Seattle with the transformation, but the first time you saw the transformation here for the Broadway version, was it different? Was it the same? How did that whole thing go down?
Yeah, so I just got chills thinking about it, but we were in rehearsal, we were at New 42, and I mean, I think one day he was in our small studio for, I guess, a face fitting, and people were just walking in and out of the room and just coming out like, and I'm so confused, I didn't know what was happening. So then one by one, they took us in, and I went in with the kids. And I was shocked because it's a completely different person. Like Seattle was definitely a different person. And I know that the first time I saw him in Seattle was right before Seattle when we had a photo shoot. But you just knew that it was her. You knew that this was the one and that this was the one that was going to do it right.
Yeah.
And the look on his face, because he knew it was the right choice. And then our reactions were definitely validation that it was the right choice. We were so thrown off, actually. Yeah. It was crazy to be just like, what? That's it.
There is a sneak peek video on, I think, the Mrs. Doubtfire Instagram account. Yeah. Where you can see everyone's reaction to the reveal. We don't get to see the reveal. EW did an exclusive photo shoot with the costume, but you should definitely go on the Mrs. Doubtfire Instagram page for that video because it's hysterically funny.
Yes, and I do make some comments saying that he has jawlines.
So before we go into our rapid fire questions, this late night talk show that we're doing is for the International Thespian Festival or the Virtual Thespian Festival this year. You have high school students who are part of this program, whether they're a freshman to a senior. What advice would you give to high school thespians right now?
This is so cliche, and I always say it, but it's so true. Always be yourself. Because nobody wants a fake version of you, because a fake version of yourself is annoying and nobody wants that. And I wish that I could tell my high school self that it was going to be okay. I had a very rough time in high school in my junior and senior year. I had just finished being on Broadway, and I went to school, and I had a little bit of a struggle adjusting. I never felt like I could find my place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all a part of growing up. And
Right.
I wish that I could tell myself that I was going to get through that. And it wasn't until recently, until like maybe last summer, right before I got Mrs. Doubtfire, that I was still trying to navigate my place in this world. And that's okay. So I would definitely tell all of the high school students out there that it is okay to find your place in this world, and it is okay to be yourself, and you don't have to apologize for being who you are. And that's that.
Amazing. That's such good advice. Thank you. And I know everyone watching is going to completely agree with you. And thank you for imparting some wisdom on our students this year. So I'm going to bring Michael DeBianco from Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS back. We are going to put you through the rapid fire questions.
I'm ready.
Okay, I have to pull up the questions. Okay.
I'm nervous.
Oh no, trust me, they're really simple.
Okay.
All right, on your mark, get set, go. What's your favorite musical of all times?
Billy Elliot.
Funniest or most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you on stage?
I farted during the tank in Matilda, and I was the head of the line, so I farted, and everyone else got to smell my farts as we
I've been asking this question on every single podcast episode I've done for Growing Up Broadway, and that is by far the best answer.
You won. You won.
I won!
Um,
Always, honestly, every embarrassing moment always has to do with me farting.
gotta be real. Gotta be real.
Matilda, we were all really gassy. I don't know why, but we were.
Oh, children.
It was all the pizza we sent from Broadway Cares during the poster signings. That's what it was.
Yes.
All right, if you could play any role regardless of gender, what would it be?
Okay, I have two. So I want to be Danny Zuko, gender bended, and then I want to be oh God, I want to be Mama Rose. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and Elphaba.
Oh, yes.
Generic, but
Classic.
I want to be Elphaba.
Same. I do want to put on my mud mask. Who do you want to be when you grow up?
who do I want to be? Patti LuPone.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, if you could eat one thing for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Sorry to the vegans out there, but I love anything with meat in it. I love meat. I'm Italian, what can I say?
That's it. That's it. What's the best piece of advice you ever received?
Oh, so a couple of months ago, Rob was telling me about that when you're little, that there's no filter on your brain. So when you get older, then all of your negative thoughts create a filter, and they block in all of your creativity and all of your imagination. So what you have to do when you're an actor, you got to let that filter go and try as hard as you can to keep the negative thoughts away.
Rob McClure.
Angel from heaven.
I'm learning how accurate that is.
Yeah.
Rob McClure needs to put out like a self-help book or like a self-help podcast.
He is the real life Mr. Rogers, like currently.
No, it's so true. Like, without a doubt. I think he needs a self-help podcast that he publishes himself.
Yeah. I'll have to text him and tell him to do that.
You tell him SJ at iHeartRadio Broadway says she'll produce it for him.
Done.
Amazing.
Did it.
Analise, thank you so much for joining us today. I know the Thespians completely appreciate you joining us today for our late night talk show Curtain Call. We wish you the best of luck. We cannot wait to be back in the theater to celebrate with you and the Mrs. Doubtfire cast. We don't know when that will be, but it will be back. We promise. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I had so much fun.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Michael, that's Curtain Call.
I can't. I want to do another one.
No, we only got 3.
Fine.
We only got
Who do I have to talk to?
Here's what I will say to all the thespians who are hopefully still watching. I have been a part of the Educational Theater Association for the last 8 years, it feels like. I'm on the advisory board for the Educational Theater Foundation. I know how hard you all worked for your last year and how everything was interrupted. You will be back in school. You will be back with your friends. You will be back in a school setting as soon as possible. We all know that you're going through a rough time right now, but everything will be back. We feel your pain. We understand exactly where your emotions are right now. But please remember that as theater students, you've learned empathy, you've learned community, and you've learned love from your craft. So please go out and make the world better, one musical at a time, as we like to say on Growing Up Broadway. Have the best summer of your lives before you go back to whatever your school situation looks like. But this has been a blast for us to be a part of, and we literally wish you nothing but the best.
Virtual hugs, all the virtual hugs. So many.
All right, Virtual Thespian Festival, we out.
Dude.
Bye.
iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.